we go live, which is right now. Hello and welcome to Dylan Knows, episode 62. And today is a fifth Sunday, which means I do not have a regular genre show set up on my fifth Sundays. I always pick something fun that normally don't talk about too much, and I've decided, you know what, I've been talking about doing this one for a while, and I finally got a free weekend with our resident expert, Mandie. Hello, Mandie.
Hi.
And we are going to be discussing the wonderful, wonderful beverage called beer. And I'm not I'll be the first person to say I'm not the biggest fan of beer. I drink it occasionally, and I do enjoy it when I do drink it, but it's not something that I go out of my way usually to drink. But you know, that's just my decision. Mandie, meanwhile, is a beer connoisseur, and that's why I had her on here, so she can talk all about what she likes about her beer. So let's see, Mandie. Let's start up real quick with let's see. The question is, how did you get into liking beer? When was the first time you ever tried beer and decided, you know what, I really enjoy this?
I used to be like you. I would drink things like Yingling and Blue Moon and Sam Adams, which are all considered to be sort of craft beer gateway beers. Some things that weren't too bitter, something that wasn't as light and thin as Natty Boh or Bud or any of those. And it wasn't until, I guess, my husband decided he wanted to start brewing beer a couple of years back. And then we started going to some Oktoberfests and, getting this beer tasted. And I just really got into it. Once I discovered really good beer and beers that I really liked, with a lot more depth and flavor to them, then I got into it, and I got into it hardcore. It's kind of a lifestyle. I made a New Year's resolution 2 years ago that I would only drink craft beer for the entire year, and I learned so much in that year, and it was kind of difficult sometimes. I had to, one summer, it's summer, you're sitting by the pool, you're playing beer pong and whatever, and everybody's drinking Natty Boh in Maryland. Everybody's drinking Natty Boh, or I got Super Pack Quest used to have a thing for Miller Lite, which is a bit banned from my home. But I would bring cans of Dale's Pale Ale everywhere, which is it's a great light beer. However, it's a little expensive for beer pong. So those days are over. I'm back to drinking Yingling in my beer pong. But I did that year. It was a great year. So that's how I got into it. I got to start to know some of the brewers and the beer reps, and just there's a whole culture, and there's a whole culture on Twitter of beer geeks. We all use the app Untapped, share our beer stories with each other, and race to get to pick up the best beer when it comes out on the shelves.
Okay, no, that's cool. I would guess, I think there's been I guess Renaissance might be a...
Yeah, no, it's totally the right word. Or fad. Some people are calling it a fad.
Of the craft beers coming in, and I kind of remember that, going to the liquor stores in the old days, they really didn't have quite as many choices as they do now. You go in there now, and it's like a whole new world is opened up to you, and I guess in the long run that's good. It broadens your experience, your mind a little bit, as it were. And to be honest, wine sort of similar to something like that. I'm more of a wine person, but wine has so many different varieties as well, and types, and it seems like there's always like a new winery popping up all the time. And now it seems like it's beer's term, and beer, it always appears that there's some kind of new beer factory opening up every year almost, maybe more than that. There might be more than that coming up, and new ones coming up. So
there's
with this,
new ones coming up in Maryland, breweries. That's what they're called, not factories, breweries.
Breweries, yes. I have been to the Yangling Brewery before,
Okay.
and I just, when I get going, I just go blah blah blah, so whatever comes out of my mouth. But yes, breweries, just like wineries are, vineyards are called wineries, is the same thing.
Fun fact, cider breweries are called cideries.
Ah, so they all rhyme.
Places that make mead are meaderies. There you go.
So, I mean, Maryland, which is where both Mandie and I live, is a, as you said, is a big craft beer state right now. Do you know of any other potential states out there that have a building culture of the craft
Right
beer
there.
coming in?
Yeah, well, California is the original. So some of the best breweries, craft beer breweries, are in California. The big ones being the Brewery up in Northern California, um, Stone, and Rogue. Those are considered to be the real heavy hitters in the brewery craft beer world, and that's in California. You're starting to get more Midwest breweries. You've got New Belgium out in Colorado, and Wisconsin's got some breweries. Ohio's got some breweries now. Um, New York State is starting to bring some up, but uh, Maryland is right now per capita one of the largest craft brewery states. So we're doing some great stuff here.
What's good? It's good to know that, I mean, if you live in Maryland, for those who don't live in Maryland, if you're a Marylander, you absolutely love your state. You love everything about it, and the fact that Maryland is
We
becoming
get to be
such a,
proud.
yes, we're very proud of our state and of our people and of our cities and of our culture in general, and the fact that Maryland is one of these new type of brewery capitals of the world, as it were. Suppose, if you want to put it that way, is fantastic, and it makes us look good, and hopefully they are being able to expand out a little bit as well. The reason why I asked that question is we have people all over the country who may or may not be watching the show and might be interested to say, you know what, I'd like to try some of these type of craft brews. Now, a lot of the local ones, you can only get in your area, correct? You
Well,
probably
so I've got a list of my favorite beers that are many of them brewed locally, but I have some alternatives that you can get nationally in case you can't get a hold of um, that particular beer. I got some examples of other ones
oh, well,
nationally.
it's a perfect segue then. Go ahead and start going down your list, and obviously you've probably have tried them before, so you can give a little
Yeah, yeah.
synopsis of it, a little quick synopsis of what you liked about it, what might need work about it, something like that.
So absolutely my favorite beer, my Twitter handle, I'll get the beer real close, maybe, I might have to stand up, is Devil's Milk. There we go.
There we go. There we go.
Devil's Milk is brewed here in Maryland. It's brewed in Bel Air. The brewery is called Duclaw Brewing, and they are located on Yellow Brick Road in Bel Air. Devil's Milk is a barley wine, and it's an American barley wine as opposed to English barley wines. English barley wines tend to be a little more bitter. It was originally brewed in Jim Wagner's basement in 1997. He's the head brewer over there, and he still has some bottles of that 1997 brew. Barley wine is something that's aged. In fact, it's called barley wine because it's treated much like wine. It's aged the way wine is. It has a higher alcohol content than many other types of beers. It's made with barley and malt and hops, and it tends to have a little bit of a fruitier flavor. It's aged for at least a year. It can be very strong, and it's brewed at a higher gravity than many regular beers. Devil's Milk itself, what's so great about it is every year the hops change. So this year, I'm pretty sure, and don't quote me on this, and Jim will be upset with me if I say it wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's Centennial and Simcoe in it this year. So they change the hops every year, and that gives it a little bit of a different profile flavor. I've been saving. Devil's Milk was my first love of craft beer, probably back in 2011 maybe, and it changes a little bit every year. Some years I love more than others. This year I'm very, very happy with what came out, and I save them every year, and so I have some bottles going back to 2011 that I'm holding to age. It's like some beers are like wine, where you can hold them and age them. Some much longer than others. Barley wines are one of them. They get much stronger. They're much richer, and the alcohol content does go up. So sometimes you have to watch. DuClaw also makes another beer called Colossus, which is a 21% beer.
Wow.
And right, and I have a little bottle of that from 2011 that I'm aging. It will not be 21% when I open them up. They'll be more like 25, 26. So you have to be careful with those.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just to give people an idea, Blue Moon has about 5%.
Right.
Wow.
And that's an example of the difference between casually drinking beer and sitting down and drinking beer like you would and appreciating it like a wine.
Which is good. I mean, they are fairly similar. I mean, as you said, some of them are able to age a little bit more than others. And then, of course, not everyone is recommended to age, correct?
Oh, no, absolutely not. There are IPAs, stuff with strong hop characters. You can't age, and some of them aren't even good after. You need to drink them fresh, very fresh.
But the barley beer type is one that it's okay to let it age a little bit, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
gets a deeper, stronger flavor to it in the end. When would you say maybe we want to crack one of those open up? I mean, how long would you maybe let it age before you say, you know what, I like to see what's going on with it?
I think that I will crack open some of 2011 in the new year. I've decided, just a little small New Year's resolution, that I'm not going to drink anything in the month of January. It's more of a weight loss thing than anything else. But I think the first beer I drink afterwards will be a 2011 Devil's Milk.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So that's the DuClaw. Do they? I mean, you say they do Devil's Milk, and they also do Colossal. Do they do anything?
They also do some. And here's the great news about DuClaw. If you're on the East Coast, they sell as far south as North Carolina and as far north as New Jersey and New York. And you probably can get Devil's Milk in some of those places now. Their kind of flagship beer at this point is a beer called Sweet Baby Jesus. Have you ever had that?
No, I haven't. What is it like?
I've seen it around. Yeah, I don't think you'd like it, Dylan. It's a pretty, it's a stout. It's a very dark beer. It's made with chocolate and peanut butter.
Oh.
I personally am not a big fan. I don't really like peanut butter in my beer, but people love it. People absolutely love it, and that's definitely available up and down the coast. And if you're not really into dark stouts, a lot of people like this though because it's a little bit sweeter. It's got a little flavor to it. One of my favorite iterations of, they do different casts with the base beer and then add things to it. I liked one that they did. They called it Blue Suede Baby Jesus, and it had peanut butter in there. It was based on, or no, bananas in it. It was Elvis's favorite sandwich.
Ah, yes.
And bananas. So I kind of liked that one, but. That's a very popular beer. They also make a beer called Oz, which is a gateway IPA. The hops aren't particularly strong. It's low. It's like 4%. So you can drink a lot of them and really get to use it. And it's called Oz because they are on the road they're on is Yellow Brick Road. So it's sort of a cute little play on
tip of the hat, yeah, tip of the hat nod to them. Yeah.
And that's also available pretty widely. I prefer their double IPA Serum, which is really hoppy and pretty smooth. So.
And just real quick, just for my personal knowledge and for anybody else out there, what exactly is IPA? Just just give a brief. Yeah.
An IPA is brewed with a lot more hops. That's the big thing about the IPAs. They are made at, how do I explain this? They use fresh hops and usually a variety of hops, and they tend to, it has to do with when you add the hops in the process of the brewing.
Okay.
They add them pretty early on, and then they usually add them again later in the process. IPAs are not everybody's forte. It's something that people tend to grow into liking as you sort of get a better taste for different beers. I certainly didn't like IPAs at first. As you slowly get into them and you start to appreciate the hops, then you can appreciate an IPA for what it is. My favorite IPA is also brewed here in Maryland. It's called Lot 3. It's brewed by Evolution Brewing Company. They are out on the Eastern Shore. But another one that I like, we'll get into that brewery in a little bit, is Oliver Ale's Draft Funk. Or excuse me, Draft Punk, as opposed to
Daft Punk.
Yes, it's Draft Punk. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice play on words. Now, it sounds like to me that, for those who might also not know, whereas grapes are used for wine, hops are what is beer's main, I guess, to create the beer, you use the hops, but then much like with wine also, they can add whatever they want to continue it, because I've seen some wheat ales before, or maybe a wheat ale, but a wheat beer, I've seen some other.
You're drinking a wheat beer right now.
Okay. Well then, there you go. Yeah, that's right. Wheat ale. That's right. There it is, right there. Fantastic. So for those who might not know, that's what creates the beer as the beer, is that it uses the hops on that. Just real quick, if anybody has any questions about beer or anything else, please, Q&A is up on the Google Plus thing if you want to just drop a comment or a question, and Mandie will try to answer as best as she can. So I'm learning a whole lot. Cool. So you brought up the Sweet Baby Jesus. It's actually an idea. My wife Dawn, who is one of our mutual friends, well, mine obviously is my wife, but she's a big peanut butter person, so she might actually like these.
She might like it. Yeah, that's it's all about taste profiles in beer. It's all about taste profiles.
And she wouldn't like the blue suede though, because she's not a banana fan. So.
In the summer, DuClaw also makes a beer called Dirty Little Freak, and I really, it's really not my style. It tastes like a Samoa cookie.
Oh wow!
So if you're into really sweet and want something fun, Dirty Little Freak is it's a choice.
Okay, you know what? That's interesting. Because, I've never really thought of beer being sweet. And I mean, you mentioned it a couple times. Yeah, you mentioned it a couple times. Is that a specific style of hops that causes the sweet, or is it something that they add?
It's the sugar and the kind of flavoring they use, and how much sugar they use. Really, barley wines tend to be a little sweeter.
Oops.
Stand by. Sorry.
It's all right. The camera got a little wasted. Don't worry. She's still around. She's getting it fixed up. There we go. Yep.
There you go.
Colors. No? There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yay!
Sorry.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi, Mandie.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so barley wines tend to be a little bit sweeter because of the amount of sugar and how long they let the sugar ferment. But you gave me a good segue to my next beer. You said some beers are brewed with beers tend to be brewed with either wheat or rye or other types of grains, and then they use hops and malts to flavor and sweeten them. And my second favorite beer is called Sour in the Rye.
There it is.
It's brewed by the brewery, which I mentioned before, out in California. It's one of the best brews. You can get this nationwide in a craft brew area of a pretty nice liquor store. They're not the easiest to come by, and they're not the cheapest, but they have brewery stuff. It's really excellent. This one is Sour in the Rye, is obviously a sour beer that's made with, that's brewed with rye grains. So Sour in the Rye is made with a 40% rye malt, and that's what gives it that rye flavor. it's also sour, which the difference between a sour and why sours are more rare than other beers is because they use a wild yeast, and you let the wild yeast grow and sort of take over it, and that's what gives the tart, sour flavor. Many breweries, especially small craft breweries, don't do sours because it can ruin your equipment. That yeast, once the yeast gets out of control, it's hard to clean it up and go on to make the next kind of beer. Let me see. Is there anything else I want to say about this?
So it does have the sour type of taste to it,
yep,
as opposed to like a bitter or
this
sweet.
one particularly, it's a little mouth puckering. They often add fruits into sours, and they have. So my favorite iteration of sour in the rye is actually kumquat sour in the rye.
Okay.
So they use different fruits to give them that sweet tartness. Traditionally, sours are made in Belgium. Have you ever heard of the Belgian Lambic or Gouze or the Flanders Red? Those are the most popular types. And I have a Flanders Red with me here. This is a very popular one. Well, again, you have to get it in a nice craft store. This is the Duchess de Bourgogne, and it is available nationwide. Get this one up.
Is that another one that's the California, or is that actually from the Netherlands? Okay, yeah. So it is Belgian. Okay.
This is a Belgian.
Belgian, rather. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Flanders Red, but yes, it's a Belgian one. So that's a great one to try if you are you'd like to have a try with a nice sour and. Can't remember what else. Lambics also, there's Linderman's Lambics are very popular. They've got that yellow label with the fruit on it. They're much sweeter than any other kind of beer you're going to have. They still have this nice carbonated, flavor to it, and still made with some hops and malts, but it's mainly fruit that they're using to give it its flavor.
Now does the fruit content that they add to that, does that in any way that you know of, maybe because of the fermentation, does it add alcohol content to it, or is...
Not usually. It's not usually. It will help it. Sometimes if you let it sit long enough, it will increase it. Actually, the answer to your question is yes, but it's not usually in there that long. Depends on the type of beer. Lambics, yes, it tends to be part of the fermentation process.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So now you were talking about... And you mentioned something also about the pricing of some of these. Some of them are a little bit more expensive than others, so it's basically fairly similar to, if you want to compare it again to wine, where wine you can get the really, really cheap, maybe $10.99 bottles down to the 24 plus. Is that a similar?
Yeah, absolutely. The higher quality the beer, the more expensive it is, and where it's coming from matters. The brewery is a relatively small brewery in considering the business that they do in Northern California. Placentia, actually, that's where they're from. It's Placentia, California. They have their beer is quite expensive. It's usually in the $24 to $34 range for a 22-ounce bottle. Just to give some of the other beers that they brew that I really like are Tart of Darkness, and that's another sour one, but it's a little less mouth puckering and a little more sweet, fruity flavor to it. They also make what is sometimes considered the great white elephant of beer, Black Tuesday, which is a bourbon barrel stout. It's very boozy, it's very heavy, it's very, very difficult to come up by, and it's usually $30 to $35.
So did you get a chance to try that before?
I have. It's a really, really fantastic beer. Craft beer drinkers do this thing called bottle shares, where everybody shows up with different bottles of something to share, and you go around and you taste everybody's bottles, and people bring stuff out of their cellar, and sometimes somebody's got a golden nugget like Black Tuesday. So I've had it a couple of times, and it really is fantastic.
Sounds interesting. So, as you pointed out, you showed me a lot of them come in just a single bottle, so you're probably not going to be able to find a lot of 6-packs on these or 12-packs.
These are all, the ones that I've showed you have mostly been 22-ounce bottles. The Devil's Milk does come in 6-packs. The regular Devil's Milk comes in 6-packs. But most of the really sensational beer is usually in a 22-ounce bottle.
Well, I mean
Because
that makes.
the thing about it, it's like drinking a bottle of wine. You got to share it with friends. It's really difficult to sit back and drink the whole thing you're by yourself. That's usually a mistake, right? Even with wine, it's usually a mistake to just sit down and drink a whole bottle. It's the same deal.
All right, sounds good. Excellent. So let's see. You've done the the tart the tart one. So what's your next level up? Another beer you want to talk about?
So I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give just one shout out to Union Brewing makes a gose, and goses can get kind of sour. They just the way the fermenting process has. Many breweries don't like goses to brew goses at all, but Union makes one called Old Pro, and Union is another Baltimore beer brewery, and so it's a nice. If you want to go one more step and do something that's a little more rich with flavor, but has that sour tartness to it, try gose.
Okay, good. So your next.
I'm going to go with a dark ale.
Okay.
So dark ale, the difference between a dark ale or an ale and a lager, do you know the difference?
No, I don't. Lagers I've always known been more of the golden flavor, color rather, and the darker ones I know are a bit darker, but I'm not sure. Is it the content of the hops or
It's
the
the
style of
yeast.
hops?
It's the
Okay.
yeast. It's the way that the yeast it ferments. There are just two different types of yeast, and lagers tend to be a little more heavy, a little more flavor, or a little stronger of a flavor, and ales tend to be, yeah, if it's an English ale, it's dark, and that has to do with the malt content. But ales just tend to be a little bit sweeter and a little less heavy than lagers. Uh, One of my favorite dark ales is brewed by Oliver Ale Brewing Company. Now, unfortunately, this is the one beer that I'm talking about that you probably, unless you live in Maryland, you can't get. The only place their stuff is on tap all over the state, but the only weird place you can get a growler, they don't bottle, and the only place you can get a growler is at their 3 location restaurants. One is the Pratt Street Ale House, right downtown. It's really close to the stadiums. It's a great sports bar, kind of just a great place to go and eat before or after a game. They have a really good crab dip and other, sort of those kinds of foods. They also have 2 other restaurants, one in Columbia, Maryland, which is called the Columbia Ale House, and they have a million taps. It's not a million taps, it's like 35 taps. But usually 10 of them are devoted to Oliver Ale, and Oliver Ales is the head brewer is a guy named Steve Jones, and he is British and kind of a mad scientist and a genius when it comes to beer. So he brews a dark one called. He's the one who does the draft funk. He's really into music. And his favorite band is The Sword. And so this is called Winter Wolves. Winter
Okay.
Wolves is a dark ale. It's made with honey, heather, and it's aged with toasted American white oak barrels. So it has a rich, strong flavor to it. And what a great beer, in my opinion, can do is be a little tweaked. And one of my absolute favorite beers is when Steve bourbon barrel ages Winter Wolves. So he's done it with Turkey Hill barrels. He's done it with Copper Fox. One more, I wrote it down. Heaven Hill was the most recent one that I had, Heaven Hill. And they are absolutely fantastic. A little bit boozy, dark, rich in flavor, just really spectacular beers. So if you want some dark ales, you're mostly going to get Belgian. Belgians also, the English and the Belgians do dark ales as opposed to, you get a lot of light ales here, in the brown ales is an American thing. But so you're going to have to look at some Belgian ones. They're much more difficult to come by than anything else I've talked about.
Now, are dark ales another name for porter, or is that
No.
it's a different style?
Yeah. Stouts and porters are completely separate styles. Stouts and porters use coffee. It's what
Okay.
makes them so dark. It what makes them gives them that flavor. And a stout has got a little bit of coffee flavor to it. A porter has a lot of coffee flavor to it. My favorite uh, stout is called Retribution. It's again brewed by Duclaw Brewing Company. Um, it's a bourbon barrel aged um, stout. And the what I talked about earlier, Black Tuesday, that great white elephant of beers, is also a bourbon barrel aged stout.
Ah, very cool. So, do you have any
Guinness,
other?
example, Guinness is a stout.
Okay.
That's the most
Yeah, I mean,
common stout on the
yeah,
market.
because I've had that, and as I said, I'm not, I haven't really gotten into the craft beer, so I usually stick with the other stuff. But I've had that before, and I've had the Yangling's half and half, and they also have their
Uh-huh.
porter as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, and once again, my own personal opinion is I'm not a big fan of the darker beers just because I think I have a thing for bitterness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't
stouts are much more bitter.
I'm not a big fan of bitter, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I guess everybody's different in their
I
own
don't,
way.
I don't, I don't tend to drink stouts by themselves. I like bourbon barrel stouts that have a little more sweetness, have a little more of that bourbon flavor to them. I do think they're better. Um, I, occasionally I'll drink a milk stout, which is a stout made with milk, obviously, and they're much thinner and not quite as heavy on the coffee flavor. I'll give you a little shout out to Terrapin Brewing Company makes a milk stout called Moohoo, and of course the Snark Alex know about Terrapin beer from The Walking Dead, because every time they
Ah,
go into a store, they walk by Walking Dead. They walk by Terrapin, Stillwater. There's one more, I can't remember what it is, but these great, fantastic Georgia craft breweries. And then there are, of course, the episodes are then sponsored by Blue Moon, but that's a
that's a different story.
that's a different story. But yeah, Moohoo, Terrapin. If you get a chance to try some Terrapin beer, absolutely do it. They make some really great beer, and the reason they're called Terrapin is because the owner used to live in Maryland, where the state turtle is a terrapin.
Yep. Awesome. And that's one you
Fun
can
fact by
probably
Mandy.
is that one you can probably pick up maybe up and down the East Coast because it wouldn't surprise me to see that in Maryland.
It's in Maryland. It just has to do with distribution and who brought. It hit Maryland by a guy named Ben Little, who used to be the rep for Bond Distributing, and he had been to Atlanta and really liked it, and so started distributing some of the stuff here, and now it's spread around the state. And I love Terrapin. They just make some really fantastic. They make some great hoppy beers. There's some of their IPAs are really really good. They also brew with some unique yeasts. One of them are hops. One of my favorite new hops is called Mosaic, and they brew a whole. The first time I ever had Mosaic was from Terrapin.
Okay. Just real quick, Mandie, I've been just looking through my Twitter feed. We actually do have a question from Janica, Pinky Guerrero.
Okay.
Janica, what is your fave import lager, and what do you think of the fad holiday flavors?
Ooh, that is a really good question. So my favorite import lager. I don't drink a ton of lagers, so I can't really answer that question. Um, they're going to be it's going to be a German. There's some great German lagers that have come into the state. Beer is not that bad. There are a couple of other ones, but I don't know the names off the top of my head. So sorry about that, Pinky. But I can discuss the fad of holiday beers. I mostly don't like them. Same thing with pumpkin beers. Like, I really enjoy a good pumpkin beer if it actually has pumpkin in it and is about the pumpkin and not about the pumpkin pie spices, which is what most pumpkin beers are. It's the same deal with Christmas. They're using cloves and other allspice and other Christmassy flavored things that they tend to go a little too far for me. I will admit that I like Trogu's Mad Elf, which is cherry holiday beer. You had that one before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law Mike, who you've actually met before, he introduced me to the Trogs, and that was the first Trogs I ever had, and it was a phenomenal. It is amazing, and every year he gets it. So every year I look forward to it. That when I see him at one of our Christmas gatherings or whatever, he always tends to have a six-pack or my in-laws bring it in as well for us as well. I think probably New Year's is probably the better shot of getting it because it's usually have New Year's at their house. And also speaking of Mike, I wish I could have gotten him on today, but he's a busy bee. He's a big German beer drinker also. I mean, he just
Yeah.
his dad brings in these great German beers. And did you have one of those at one of our parties? Did he have?
I did have some of Mike's got some good taste in beer. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, Trogs is great, and I think I've actually tried some of their other kinds besides Mad Elf, and I actually kind of like it as well.
Trogues is brewed in Pennsylvania. You can actually go up to their brewery. It's not that far. They give a great tour, and yeah, they make some amazing stuff. Dreamweaver is one of my favorites. But the Mad Elf, yeah, Mad Elf is not hard to come by. That hard to come by if you go to a craft store. They're all over the place right now.
And it's actually interesting is the corner liquor store up the street from me, they have Trogs all the time, which is it's really interesting. It's a very small liquor store, but they've actually got a pretty good selection. They've got and they make a lot of they can fill a lot with the space they have. They actually have a giant cooler in the back, a walk-in cooler you can go into where they stack all their beers in there as well. So if you want to get the 12 packs, the 6 packs, 12 packs, whatever, and you want them cold, you can go in there and get them. But if you don't want them cold, they have them stacked outside also, so you can have them at regular room temperature as well.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking up Trogues right now on a tap because I can't remember what my favorite Trogues is. That's not right. Which is the great thing. I really can't say enough. Nugget Nectar. That's what it is. It's almost an IPA. It's very, very hoppy beer. Nugget Nectar. That is definitely. It comes out. It should be coming out right about now, actually. And it is. Oh, it's a spectacular hoppy beer. They do some really great things over there.
Now, with the name of Nectar in it, is there like a honey aspect?
They just call it Nugget.
Okay.
Nectar. I do enjoy a good mead, though. My favorite meadery is Bee Nectar, and they do some amazing things with bourbon barrels. And I would say my favorite one is called Kill All the Golfers.
So was that kind of a nice?
Yeah, they just do silly names. A lot of beer companies now are doing silly names. It's people are trying to establish their brand and and now that there's so many beers out there and so many breweries, you got to come up with a unique name. There are quite a few lawsuits going on right now about you had a small brewery in Colorado brewing. Having the same name as a small brewery in Maryland, and it was never a problem until they hit each other's market, and now it's we had it first, or you had it first, or where state of Maryland is starting to take priority to saying in the state of Maryland this beer was named this first, and if you're going to come into the state, you have to name your beer something different. So.
Okay. I guess that's interesting, but it's interesting that you mentioned that because one of our other people who's watching us, Jen528, another Snark Alex, she said that some of the names of the beers are crack her up, which is great. I mean, that's the whole point of it. I mean, that's why I've always said that you might really hate like a commercial for that matter, because it's just so dumb. But the thing is, you're talking about the item and you know about it. So with the beer, you get the unique names, the crazy names. I mean, you get the crazy ones. I mean, there's like they do like Mad
Sweet Baby
Bitch.
Jesus? Nobody forgets the name Sweet Baby Jesus.
Baby Jesus, exactly. And there's like I think there's like a Mad Bitch one or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what that one is. I think I've seen that one before. I don't know.
Well, you're thinking of Raging Bitch.
Okay,
From
Raging Bitch,
Flying
yeah.
Dog. That's what you're
Yeah,
thinking of. Raging Bitch is
that's
your pale ale. No,
that,
yeah, it's with a really creepy looking dog on the cover. Yeah,
that's
Raging
one of
Bitch.
the ones that we have at our gatherings also
Yep.
in my in-laws house. So and it's always funny to watch my father-in-law, mother-in-law who are, I mean, they're not they're good people, but they just find it hard for them to say, yeah, I'll take a Raging Bitch. So like, can I have one of those? You know?
Right.
It's always
Yeah,
fun to see them get uncomfortable.
your brother-in-law does a great job of having local breweries. He usually has a heavy seas and usually six pack, and he usually has a six pack of Flying Dog.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, I wish I could have gotten him on there, but I said today. But he's a crazy busy guy. But that's great. So let's see. We talked about the dark ales. What's the next level of beer
Well,
you like
I'm
to talk
actually
about?
currently drinking a Millstone cider that I
Okay.
will share a little bit with you. They come in these really cool looking bottles. Millstone is out of Moncton. They have a huge apple orchard that they select their apples from. Everything at Moncton is brewed with ingredients that are uh, uh, within 100 miles radius. So they're
Okay.
really into the local thing. Uh, this is called Hop Vine, and it is a mead that is brewed with beer hops, specifically Cascade hops. There are a lot of ciders on the market, and this one's definitely my favorite. You know, Angry Orchard's very popular now. Woodchuck's been around for a really long time, but this is my favorite. It is local. Uh, it's available in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Uh, it's going to be a while before they're outside of that region, though. But it's brewed with wild flower honey and York Imperial apples
Ooh.
and Cascade hops, and it's beautiful. So this is what real cider looks like, as opposed to if you pour a glass of apple orchard cider or Angry Orchard cider, it's completely clear. It's gonna be this slight yellow tone, but it's completely see through. Real cider is always cloudy. I'm holding it way out too far.
But we can still see
Always
it though. But
cloudy.
yeah. Okay.
Um, got a right amount of carbonation. This carbonates and ferments in the bottle. So they brew the cider, they let it ferment for a while, and then they put it in the bottles, and it continues to ferment. Once these are bottled, they only last a year. So this is not something you can sit on for a long time. Something I hadn't said before that I really want to stress is once you put a bottle of beer in the refrigerator, you cannot take it out again unless you're going to drink it. Change of temperature drastically affects the flavor and the bitterness of a beer. They'll go bad real quickly if you start to mess with the temperature. And this the thing about Millstone is once you put it in the fridge, you have 6 months to a year to drink it. So great.
So with Millstone though, you as you said, as long as you don't take it out all that often, if you leave it in the
Great.
refrigerator, you've got six
A
months
year.
to a year to finish it off. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, so you might not be in the mood for it right away, but you put it back there and let it sit in the refrigerator, and it'd be okay to pull out, say, 3 or 4 months later. If you say, hey, you
Yep.
know what, I feel like I'm in the mood for that. Okay, sounds good. Now, another question I had real quick. With a lot of these local breweries in the area, I know one of the things we did when I was in college was I went to college in Pennsylvania, and during our senior week, we got to take a tour of the Yangling Brewery. Do they offer tours? I mean, I know you said Trogs does in Pennsylvania, but does the Maryland Craft Brewing Companies,
Yeah.
do they offer?
Some of them do. Union Brewing, right in the heart of Baltimore, is open it's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they do tours. Um, the Flying Dog does tours out in Frederick, Maryland. Duclaw does not. There Oliver Ales is about to open a big brewery in the city, and I think are going to be offering them on occasion. So some of them, yes. If you go out to Evo on the Eastern Shore, they do tours as well. Um, Dogfish Head does not. It's really hard to talk about East Coast craft beer without mentioning Dogfish Head. They're one of the pioneers of craft beer, and they have 2 locations. They have one in Germantown and one out in Delaware and Rehoboth.
Actually, again, I think I might have actually had one of those once again. I think Mike might have gotten one,
Yeah.
and I think I tried one of those. I think that was, from what I recall, I kind of like that one too. Do you have a favorite Dogfish beer, or is that on your
Yes,
list? Or?
Festina Pesh. Festina Pesh is one of my favorite. It's their sour beer. It's made with peaches.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. I still have a bottle in my fridge. I'll bring you one, Don. Uh, yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites.
Okay.
It's sort of a gateway sour beer. It's not nearly as sour as the things that I've mentioned earlier today, but and interesting. Millstone cider is a little sour too. Most real ciders, fresh ciders, have a little bit of tang to it, have a little bit of tartness, and they actually make mead too, and they make a sour mead calluld Thistle, which is
wow.
really interesting and unique. Yeah, they are close. They're not that far from you. I definitely would recommend you guys go out there one day, bring a picnic with you, taste all their incredible. They do a free tasting, and they usually have about 15 different ciders that you could taste.
Oh wow, that does sound like a good idea. Where do you know exactly where they are? Or?
They're in Moncton, Maryland. I can put a shout out to them on Twitter in a little bit.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So next level of beer, you like to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about saisons and farmhouse ales. So this is like saisons and farmhouse ales are. You go on a journey when you get into craft beer. You don't like it all right away. First you like some of the stronger, sweeter stuff, and then you get into some of the hoppy stuff, and then you get into some of the sour stuff, and then you get into the funky stuff. And I am super into the funky stuff. I love farmhouse ales that taste like a barn. Like, that's the flavor. You're like, oh, yeah, you can taste the horses. That is what I like in farmhouse ales. So I have a couple that you can get all over the country. Dogfish Head makes one called Noble Rot that I really like. The name Noble Rot. They taste funky. They're brewed in the winter usually, and the yeast sits and then drunk in the summer, and the yeast sits and makes them very funky. It's just the yeast sits in there a long time, and that's what you're tasting. So one that's out right now all over the country is called Sophie. Now, you're only going to get this at a fancy craft beer store. So any place and a lot of liquor stores are becoming fancy craft beer stores there. They're all over the country. And this is available. Sophie is made by Goose Island. They make the Bourbon County stuff. They also make what's their big one? Goose Island 321. They make a pale ale and a regular one, an IPA. This is a Belgian style farmhouse ale. I also recommend Saison Dupont, which is a Belgian. It's from the brewery Brasserie Dupont. It's called Saison Dupont. It's very funky. And the Noble Rot from Dogfish Head, those are the ones I wanted to mention. The hops are very strong. That's the wrong use. They're very present, and you can just taste the yeast and the fermentation. It's just really funky. That's become one of my favorite types of beer.
So that's the style of farmhouse ale. Then is this type of heavy yeast and hops, the type of flavoring.
Yeah.
Now, You said that they keep the yeast in. Do they usually remove the
They'll
yeast after a
remove the yeast.
time?
Yeah, they'll remove the yeast at the end, as opposed to frequently the yeast is in the beer for it ferments off towards the end. They just use a lot more in the farmhouse ale. So sometimes they'll siphon some off the top to remove that discoloration and sort of consistency of the beer.
So your description of it being like drinking a farmhouse is sort of like it's like an earthy tone
Yeah.
style. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's pretty
And they
cool.
use more earthy hops in it.
All right, I mean that's everybody has different tastes. You never know. That might be one of your favorites up there. Are they? You said are they really the only ones that make the really good ones? Do you know of any other potential ones that are upcoming or
There are
farmhouse
loads of
ales
farmhouse
or?
ales. Again, if you download the Untapped app, it will give you just loads of options for you can look up farmhouse and it'll give you a lot of them. The biggest complaint I have about Untapped is it makes you recommendations for beer that is only brewed in Oregon that you can't just get. There's also some great websites that have a list of the top 10 for different beers. If I can get my Kindle on here. Beeradvocate.com will have, I'm looking right now at the Saison Farmhouse Ale section, and it just has a list of the top 50 farmhouse ales across the color. Stillwater Artisanal Ales makes one called Cellar Door. Stone Saison, maybe the Stone Brew coming out of California. I think Boulevard makes one too. Boulevard is brewed pretty locally on the East Coast. No, it's not. Boulevard is out in Colorado. I'm sorry, I was thinking of Brooklyn. Boulevard makes one called Saison Brett. There's it. Brooklyn Brew makes one as well. Brooklyn Sriracha Ace. So yeah, you go to Beer Advocate and you look up a type you really want to try, something that I've mentioned here. You go there and you can scroll through it and it'll tell you, it's a list of 50. One of them will be available to you somewhere.
And as mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, I've been going into liquor stores and just look around for usually wine or whatever, but the beer section keeps increasing in size. So, if you have a nice liquor store near where you live, absolutely go inside and check it out. And check in the back a little bit. That's where ours is. The one I'm thinking about, there's one. It's like a Reisterstown Liquors. It's not the corner one near me, but it's a little bit further down Reisterstown Road. They've got, you walk in, and it's a pretty nice size liquor store. You got the wines on one side, you got the vodkas and the tequilas another. But you keep heading the back, and then there's a whole section in the back. It's just that's all it is beer back there. So you've got they have the craft beer, they've got the Trogs, they've got some of the local one, they've got the Raging Bitch, they've got other stuff as well. And then they've got the coolers as well filled with the beer, so if you want a cold case or whatever. And then they also have, and I guess I never really noticed it till you started bringing it up, they do have the ones that are like the bottles of wine in the beer format as well. So it's just a matter of, just go to, your local liquor store. It is the craft beers are kind of having a renaissance, as we said earlier. Check it out. You might find something interesting. And even if we haven't said anything about it, if you just see something that sounds interesting to you, try it. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do.
And you can always look it up on Untapped and see what its average rating is, or go to Beer Advocate and see what they're listing. But that's a little more complicated. Get Untapped, and you can go. You see a beer, you're like, oh, that looks like an interesting bottle. I wonder what people think of it. Type it in on Untapped, you get a whole explanation of how it's made, what kind of style it is, and then you can read people's reviews of it.
Oh wow, that is a good one. So yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in beer and learning more about the craft beers, recommend getting the Untapped app. Any more after Farmhouse Ale? Is there another level you want to talk about?
I did not really do a. I talked a little bit about stouts and bourbon barrels. One of the ones that is more readily available is called Old Rasputin. And it's one of my favorites. It's very heavy and very involved. complex flavor, but it is more locally available than the one I mentioned, Retribution. Parabola is another one. Parabola is made by Firestone, and it is a very rich bourbon imperial stout. Hard to get a hold of, but when it is available, it's available nationwide. The last one I want to talk about that I really, that's one of my absolute favorite beers is again by Oliver Ale. They're probably my favorite local brewery. And unfortunately, you just sort of have to live in Maryland to get their stuff. But they make something called Hot Monkey Love, and I thought you'd appreciate the name. Hot Monkey Love is a barley wine, and he bourbon barrels it and does all sorts of crazy things with it. But it's sweet, it's rich, it has just a little bit of bitterness to it. It's one of my absolute favorite beers, and I wish it was available to everybody. Hopefully someday Oliver Ales will brew and ship around the country, and you'll all be able to try these wonderful things.
Well, didn't you say that they're thinking of building a new big brewery?
Maybe that's a new brewery. It's going to open soon, but they have a lot of restaurants to supply beer to, so it's going to be a little while before they're ready to bottle it and share it with anybody else.
It's understandable.
So, and I highly recommend their restaurants. The food is amazing.
Okay, cool.
And they make great beer on top.
When I was in college, there was a place we went to called the Tap Room. So if you're ever in Reading, Pennsylvania, check out the Tap Room. I believe it's still open, but they were one of the first ones where you went in, and they were just tons of beers that you never heard of, that I never heard of before. I mean, it's like they have like 50 beers on tap. They've got a big giant chalkboard on the wall. It details what each one is with a good description of it, stuff like that. So I think when I went I didn't go as often as my other friends did. They went practically almost every week. It was one of their favorite places to go, and they were more into the beer aspect of it. But I went a few times. It was the place itself was your typical type of bar area, but this one was just a really nice trying 50 different styles from all over. So they are out there. Just got to find them.
You could do that on Untapped. On Untapped, you can look and see where there are. You get it till you find your location, and you can see what are the best craft bars in your area. That's a really fun feature of it. My husband travels for work. He's gone 5 days a week, and he uses that frequently to figure out where he should go have dinner, where he should go have a beer. We have a bar in Baltimore, and it's considered to be one of the best bars in the world. They have, I believe it's 120 taps. Beer from all over the world. It's called Max's Tap House. It's in Fells Point in Baltimore. And if you're ever in Baltimore, I can't stress enough, you need to go check this place out. And you're just going to find beers that you'll never find anywhere else. And the bartenders are extremely knowledgeable. Tell them what you like. They'll give you a beer that you just have never even heard of, and probably can't ever get again. But sometimes you have to give those a try.
Exactly. I mean, you never know, and it might give you incentive to come on back, to visit, to say, hey, you know what? I like that beer. I want to try it again, and head on back and say, oh, I'd like to try this again. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they have wicked loaded tater tots, so that never hurts the situation ever.
Yeah, food and beer go together just as well as food and wine do. It's just
absolutely. Absolutely. The other restaurant owned by Oliver Ales is called the Park Tavern in Sephora Park, and they do just that. They do some great pairings of food with using some of the beer, and it's you can have some really gourmet food with some simple craft beers. You just got to know how to pair them.
And actually, now that you mentioned, I'm just thought about this. I listen to 105.7 here in Baltimore. It's their sports radio station, and Scott Garceau, who's a legend in the sportscasting world. He has a show on about the time I'm leaving work, and I always listen to that. And they harken back to the old style radio commercials where they read stuff that they're promoting themselves. He promotes the Valley Inn, which is a restaurant up here in Baltimore County that has just reopened lately. It closed down for a while, and then they reopened it recently. And he said that there's a happening happy hour. I think every day up there with these. He says I think that one of the nicest selections of craft beers in the area up there at the Valley Inn, and it's like Thursday. I think it's every day. It's like from 5 to 7 or something like that, or it might just be maybe a Thursday night where they have the happy hour. But they offer. I think they offer these craft beers on tap. The whole time, but the happy hour type of pricing probably might be one or like the 5 to 7 time or whatever. So I haven't been out there. It's not too far away from here, but that might be another place you if you're in the area, you might want to check out. Maybe Mandie, if you ever want to maybe check out the Valley Inn, see if they've got a nice selection there.
I'm going to try a new place. Side note: if you want to collect pint glasses and beer glasses, they are really easy to get. Almost all ale houses, places that have beer on tap, have a day of the week that they call Pint Night, where they feature a particular brewery and they give away free glasses. So yeah, I have a cabinet. I have 2 cabinets actually, just full of pint glasses and snifters and all sorts of glasses that I got for free just by going to Pint Night, and that's true everywhere in the country. So find a local bar, check out their taps, and they'll usually on Pint Night have special beers come in from all over the place, and you get to try new things. So I definitely recommend going to one of those.
That's good. So we're living in a good time for if you're sick and tired of your typical beers you're used to, go out there and try to explore a little bit. I mean, as I said, wine was very similar. They went through something similar 20 plus years ago where you just had the regular stuff, and then gradually these other new wineries started popping up and started trying new things, and now it's beer's turn, and so fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mandie?
No, I think that's it. I think I've talked enough about beer. Thank you for letting me run my mouth.
No problem. It was very interesting. I learned a lot of stuff I didn't know, and hopefully everybody out there, you learned some stuff as well. So thank you for watching this special episode of here's my daughter. There's Miss Mandie. Hi, Miss Mandie. She's been to our parties a few times. But we are getting ready to depart. So I will be seeing Mandie on Saturday. We'll be having a little get-together. Should be fantastic. A little Christmas adult beverage going. So that should be a lot of fun. So everyone should be jealous of us. And so... enjoy yourselves. Dylan knows we'll be back next Sunday at 12:30. I'll be focusing on my comic books with MJ Khan, and I've just started thinking I may also have a special edition on Thursday night at 9 o'clock since the final episode of Snarkalic Radio will not be on until the 11th. So I might pop in and do a special episode on Thursday. I haven't decided yet, but I will be doing one for sure on Sunday. Mandie, pleasure as always. I'll have to have you on again sometime. And... listen, play back this. Everyone out there, play back the YouTube videos. Write down all these names. Experience them for yourselves. Was it Untapped? Is that what you said? The app from. Yep. Get that as well, and you'll be able to experience some of the good stuff, and just go out there. I mean, there's some that she's intrigued me with, and I'd like to try as well. So on that note, I want to say to you all, have a pleasant Sunday, and I hope it's informative. And that's right. Say bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.